I kept every single one of them, whispered Maria, her trembling hands clutching a small wooden box. Her eyes glistened with tears as she gazed at the folded, colourful papers inside. Because these drawings were more than colours on paper. They were their voices, their little hopes, and I couldn't let them be thrown away like they didn't matter. The camera of life lingered on her face, lined with exhaustion, yet softened by something deeper, love. Maria had worked as a maid in the billionaire's mansion for years. To most people, she was invisible. She cleaned the marble floors until they shone like glass, dusted chandeliers bigger than her own bedroom, and served dinner on golden plates she would never taste from. To the outside world, she was just a shadow in the corners of someone else's palace. But inside her heart, she carried something far greater than her job description. She carried the voices of children. It had started years ago, when the billionaire's children, Ella and James, were much younger. They had always loved to draw. Crayons scattered across the floor, watercolors staining expensive rugs, pencils dulling as quickly as they were sharpened. Their drawings covered scraps of paper, napkins and old notebooks. Castles, dragons, flowers, portraits of their parents, sometimes imperfect, sometimes wild, sometimes heartbreakingly beautiful. But in a home where everything had to be perfect, there was little room for messy creativity. The billionaire, Mr. Carter, often dismissed their art with a wave of his hand. "They'll grow out of it," he would say coldly, glancing at the scattered papers as Maria quietly bent down to gather them. "Throw those away. They're just children's scribbles." Maria never threw them away. Every single drawing that touched her hands, she folded carefully, pressed flat, and placed inside an old wooden box she had found in the storage room. She couldn't explain why she did it. Maybe because she grew up poor, and even a broken crayon was a treasure. Maybe because she had no children of her own, and these papers felt like borrowed pieces of motherhood. Or maybe because she knew, somehow, that these drawings carried parts of Ella and James the world would never see if they disappeared. The years went by. The children grew. The drawings became fewer, and still the box grew heavier with their dreams. One evening, long after the house had gone quiet, Maria sat on the floor of her small servant's room. The wooden box lay open on her lap. She traced her fingers. Across one of the earliest drawings, a stick figure with messy hair and a wide smile. Underneath, written in shaky letters, was a word: Mommy. Maria pressed it to her chest, closing her eyes. She remembered the night Ella had drawn it. She had been crying in the corner of the nursery because her mother hadn't come home from a business trip. Maria had been the one to wipe her tears, to sit with her until she fell asleep, the crayon still clutched in her hand. That drawing was Ella's voice, and Maria had kept it safe. But she never imagined that one day the billionaire himself would find the box. The story begins on a morning of glassy sunlight spilling across the mansion's grand windows. Maria was polishing the staircase when Ella, now 15, stormed down the steps with a sigh. "Dad doesn't listen," she muttered, slamming her notebook shut. "What is it, Miss Ella?" Maria asked gently, pausing with the cloth in her hand. "It's nothing." Ella hesitated, then opened the notebook halfway. "I was showing him my designs for clothes. I thought maybe I could be a fashion designer one day, but he just said it's a hobby, that I should think of something serious." Maria's heart twisted. She wanted to tell Ella that her dreams were serious, that every great designer, every artist, every visionary once began with a pencil and a dream, but all she could do was smile softly. "Dreams don't stop being real just because someone else can't see them," Maria said quietly. "Sometimes they're more real than anything." Ella studied her, as if hearing words she never got from her father. "Do you really think so?" Maria nodded, her eyes tender. "I know so." Later that day, as Maria tucked fresh linens into the storage cabinet, she heard voices in the library. "James, this is nonsense," Mr. Carter said sharply. "You can't waste your time drawing comics. Focus on mathematics, business, Things that will actually secure your future. James's young voice broke. But I love it, Dad. It makes me happy. Happiness doesn't pay bills, Carter snapped, closing the folder on his desk. Enough. Maria froze, clutching the folded sheet in her hand. She glanced down. It was one of James's recent sketches he had left on the dining table. A superhero with messy hair, holding up a shield to protect a family. Her chest ached. She slipped the paper into her apron pocket and whispered to herself, I'll keep it safe. What Maria didn't know was that the universe had a strange way of uncovering hidden truths. Weeks later, during an unexpected storm, the mansion lost power. The children huddled in the living room, their phones dead, the rain pounding like drums on the windows. Mr. Carter, pacing with impatience, went searching for candles in the servants' storage room. That was when he saw it. A wooden box tucked neatly on the shelf, marked with faded letters. Curious, he pulled it down and opened it. Inside, stacks of folded papers stared back at him. Bright colors, pencil sketches, childish scrawls, hundreds of them. He picked one up. It was a picture of a tall man with a briefcase, standing under a grey sky, with a little girl reaching for his hand. Above it, in a child's handwriting, Daddy, please look. Carter's throat tightened. He pulled out another, and another. Each drawing seemed to speak to him in ways he had never let himself hear. His children's silent voices, their unspoken loneliness, their little hearts screaming for him while he was too busy building an empire to notice. And then he saw Maria's handwriting on the back of one paper, faded but clear. Some dreams need someone to believe in them. The billionaire's hands shook. For the first time in years he sat down, not on a golden chair, not at his marble desk, but on the cold floor of the storage room, surrounded by the innocent colors of the life he had ignored. Maria. His voice cracked, breaking the silence. Maria appeared at the door, surprised to find him there. She froze when she saw the box in his lap. Sir, I can explain. But Carter looked up at her, his eyes glistening, his voice barely a whisper. Why did you keep these? Maria's breath caught in her chest. She took a slow step forward. Because they mattered. Even if no one else thought they did, I couldn't let them disappear. The storm roared outside, but inside that room, another storm was beginning to break. The storm of a man realizing how much he had missed. The storm outside had passed, but inside the mansion, silence lingered. Mr. Carter hadn't moved from the storage room floor. He sat there, the wooden box before him, surrounded by drawings that whispered memories he had long forgotten. Maria stood near the door, unsure whether to leave or speak. Finally, Carter broke the silence. All this time, his voice was low, heavy. I thought I was building them a future. I never stopped to see that they already had one inside them. Maria folded her hands tightly in front of her apron. They only wanted you to notice. Carter picked up a picture Ella had drawn years ago, a family under a tree, the father's face shaded grey. He rubbed his thumb over the paper as if trying to erase the distance drawn there. His jaw clenched. I dismissed it all, their ideas, their happiness. I thought discipline and success were the only gifts I could give them. He looked up at Maria, his eyes wet. But you kept what I threw away. Maria hesitated, then stepped closer. Because their voices mattered, and someday I hoped you'd hear them. Carter leaned back, pressing his palms over his face. For the first time in decades, the man who commanded boardrooms and controlled empires felt powerless in front of a box of paper. When Ella entered the room a few minutes later, she froze. Her father was sitting on the floor, drawings spread around him like a mosaic of forgotten love. Dad? Her voice trembled. Carter lifted his head slowly. His face was tired, vulnerable in a way Ella had never seen. He held up one of her old sketches, the castle with pink flags she had drawn when she was 6. "You drew this," he said softly. Ella nodded, her brows knitting. "You told me to stop wasting time." He swallowed hard. "I was wrong." James appeared behind her, his hair messy from sleep. His eyes widened when he saw the scene. "What's going on?" Carter held out the drawing of the superhero James had sketched, the one Maria had tucked into her apron weeks ago. "Is this yours?" James hesitated. "Yeah, but you never wanted to see it." Carter's voice cracked. "I want to see it now." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The children exchanged cautious glances, as if trying to decide whether to believe him. Maria stayed quiet, watching from the corner, her heart pounding. Then Carter did something he had never done before. He lowered his head. "I'm sorry." The words sounded foreign in his mouth, but they carried a weight that made Ella's throat tighten. "You never say that," she whispered. "I should have said it a long time ago," he admitted. He placed the drawings gently back into the box, then pushed it toward his children. "These belong to you. I never should have let them feel like nothing." James knelt beside the box, his fingers tracing the papers with reverence. You kept all of these?" He looked up at Maria, realization dawning. "You saved them." Maria smiled faintly, her eyes soft. "I only kept what was already precious." Ella blinked back tears, picking up a folded sheet with her childish handwriting. "Daddy, come home early." Her voice wavered. "I thought you never even saw this." Carter's chest tightened. "I didn't, but I see it now. I see you." The children stared at him, searching for sincerity, and for the first time they saw it, his armor cracking, his walls lowering. That night, Carter didn't return to his office. Instead, he sat with his children in the living room, the wooden box between them. They unfolded drawing after drawing, laughing at the silly ones, crying at the ones that revealed their loneliness. For hours they spoke, not about business, not about success, but about dreams. Ella talked about her passion for fashion design, her eyes glowing as she showed sketches from her notebook. James shyly shared his comics, explaining the worlds and heroes he imagined. And Carter listened, not just with his ears, but with his heart. Maria watched quietly from the kitchen doorway, her chest warm with quiet pride. For years she had carried the weight of their forgotten voices. Now she was witnessing something extraordinary, a father learning to hear his children. Later, when the children had gone to bed, Carter found Maria in the kitchen, washing the last of the dinner dishes. "Maria." She turned, startled to see him standing there. "Yes, sir." He stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved more than drawings. You saved my children from losing their voices, and me from losing them." Maria set down the dish and dried her hands slowly. "They only needed you, sir. I just kept what they couldn't." He shook his head. "No, you gave them hope when I gave them nothing but silence." His eyes softened, the hardness of years melting away. "You've done more for them than I have." Maria's lips trembled, but she steadied her voice. "I only did what love required." Carter studied her face, the lines etched from years of quiet sacrifice. "You've been more of a mother to them than they'll ever know." Her eyes widened, tears stinging. "No, they have a mother. I only filled the silence." But Carter shook his head slowly. "You filled the silence with love, and that's something I forgot how to do." For a long moment they stood in silence, the sound of rain dripping faintly outside. Something had shifted. The mansion, once cold and distant, was beginning to breathe again, and in Carter's chest, for the first time in years, was not the weight of ambition, but the fragile beginnings of regret, hope, and a chance to change. But change was never easy. The hardest part was yet to come. The days after the storm were not the same in the Carter mansion. Something had shifted in the air. The grand halls, once filled only with polished silence, now echoed with the sound of pencils scratching on paper, laughter spilling from rooms, and voices that had been too quiet for too long. Carter had begun doing something no one expected. He listened. One afternoon he knocked softly on Ella's door. She looked up, startled. He wasn't the type of man to knock. He usually barged in or stayed away entirely. "Can I come in?" he asked gently. Ella hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah." Carter stepped inside, his eyes falling on the sketches pinned across her wall, fashion designs, bold and colourful. He walked closer, scanning each detail. "These are beautiful," he admitted, his voice thick with awe. Ella's eyes widened. You actually like them?" "I more than like them," he said firmly. "I believe in them." Her lips parted, tears threatening. For years she had waited to hear those words. "Thank you, Dad." Carter placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes softening. "I should have said it long ago." Meanwhile, James found his father waiting for him in the study one evening. The boy clutched his sketchpad nervously. "I drew something new," James said quietly. Carter extended his hand. "Show me." James opened the book, revealing a comic strip where a tall man in a suit stood beside a small boy holding a shield. Together they faced a storm, side by side. Carter's throat tightened. "Is this us?" James nodded shyly. "I used to draw him fighting alone, but now I don't think he has to." Carter pulled his son into his arms, something he hadn't done in years. "You're right. He doesn't." The children felt something new blooming, hope, and Maria watched from the shadows of her quiet work, her heart swelling with quiet joy. But one evening, Carter called Maria to the study. She entered nervously, wiping her hands on her apron. "Sir." He stood by his desk, the wooden box in his hands. "I've been thinking about this," he said softly. "For years, this box was yours alone. You guarded their voices when I ignored them. But now, I want it to be theirs. I want them to know their dreams matter." Maria swallowed hard. "They'll treasure it." Carter looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "And I'll treasure you. Maria, I can't undo the years I lost, but I can make sure they grow up knowing their father believes in them. And knowing that the woman who saved their voices was never just the maid. She was family." Maria's lips trembled. "I only did what my heart told me." "And that," Carter said firmly, "makes you greater than all the wealth I've ever earned." He gathered Ella and James into the study, the box resting on the table. "These," Carter said, opening the lid, "are your treasures. I didn't see them before, but from this day forward I will never stop seeing you." The children's faces lit with tears and smiles, a moment of healing folding into the cracks of years of silence. Ella clutched one of her earliest drawings to her chest. "You saved us, Dad, not just these papers. Us." Carter shook his head, his gaze shifting to Maria. "No, my child, she did." Ella and James turned to Maria, their eyes wide, realization dawning. You kept them all?" James whispered. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I couldn't let them disappear." The children rushed to her, wrapping their arms around her. Ella's voice broke. "You're more than our maid. You're our guardian angel." For the first time, Maria let herself cry, not silently, not hidden in her small room, but openly, held in the arms of the children she had loved as her own. And Carter stood back, watching the scene with tears slipping silently down his cheeks. The man who once thought wealth was everything now understood. The greatest treasures were made of paper, crayons, love, and time. That night, when the mansion's lights glowed warmly, Carter gathered his children and Maria around the dining table. The golden plates were gone. Instead, plain dishes, simple food, and laughter filled the room. For the first time, it felt like home. The wooden box sat in the center, not as a secret, but as a reminder. Dreams are never too small, voices are never too quiet, and love can be hidden in the humblest of hands. As the night closed, Carter raised a glass of water, not wine, not champagne. His voice carried across the table, steady and sincere. "To the voices we almost lost," he said, looking at his children, "and to the one who never let them be forgotten." Maria lowered her head, humbled. Ella and James beamed. And in that moment, a family was reborn. The truth of life is simple. Sometimes what seems small to us means everything to someone else. A child's drawing, a kind word, a listening ear, they can change a heart forever. So remember this, never underestimate the little things you do. They might just be the very thing someone is praying you'll hold on to. Because sometimes saving a simple drawing is the same as saving a dream, and dreams are everything. Love is not measured by what we keep for ourselves, but by what we choose to save for others. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Black Saga, for more emotional and powerful life-changing stories. Drop us a comment, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that small acts of kindness can create the biggest miracles.